You left me at the door last week, with a sentence I have not been able to set down since. We just fed the whole universe into one equation, watched space itself start to stretch, run the entire film backward toward a single, unbearable instant. And right there, at the very beginning, you said the theory confesses that general relativity cannot be the final word. And I've been turning that over for 7 days because look at the shape of what you said. This is the most successful idea anyone has ever had. It bent starlight around the sun. It built the black holes. It made the sky ring like a bell. It wrote the history of the whole cosmos out of one thought: space-time bends. And in 100 years, it has never once, not a single solitary time, been caught being wrong. And you're telling me that that theory, the one that never loses, sat down and wrote its own confession. So I've come back down the stairs one last time to ask the thing I couldn't sleep on. What does a theory that is never wrong have to confess?
What does it have to confess? Yes, that's the whole of tonight, and it's the right question to end a season on. I'll answer it as honestly as I know how, and I'll warn you now, at the front, so you can't say I didn't. Tonight, I don't rescue you at the finish.
There it is. You know the move I mean, don't you?
The one you're forever waiting for. Right at the lip of the cliff, where I reach down and haul the floor back up, and show you the thing only looked broken.
I've come to lean on that move. It's half the reason I keep coming down the stairs.
Tonight, my hands stay in my pockets. What this theory confesses is real, and it's unsolved, and the kindest thing I can do on the last night is refuse to tie a bow on it. But here's my promise, and I'll spend the whole evening making good on it. By the end, you're going to see that the confession is not the theory failing. It's the single most impressive thing it ever does.
That is exactly the sort of sentence you say right before I don't sleep for a week. Fine, but before you break my heart, I want to stand in the good part for a minute, because we built something this season, the two of us, and I refuse to march straight past it on the way to the funeral.
Then let's stand in it. You've earned the whole view. Go on. Where did we start?
We started with a man falling. That was the first night. A person steps off something high and for one heartbeat, before the fear, there's this. Nothing. And you told me the nothing was the clue. That the falling feeling I've had my whole life isn't a hand pulling me down. It's what it feels like to follow the shape of space and time.
The happiest thought he ever had, he called it. A man in free fall feels no gravity whatsoever. And from that one homely feeling, from nothing, the whole thing unrolled.
Because if falling and floating feel exactly alike, gravity was never a force reaching up to grab me.
It's geometry. The ground isn't pulling you, the ground is stopping you, holding you off the straight path you'd otherwise be falling along.
And the straight path runs through a space-time that's been bent. That was the leap that took me weeks. Not space, space-time. Time knitted into it, the whole fabric sagging around anything heavy.
And here's the part I'll never tire of, so once more for the road. Near you, right now, it's mostly the time part of the fabric doing the bending. Your feet sit a little deeper in the sag than your head, so time runs a hair slower down there, and you fall toward where the clocks run slow.
That's the whole secret of an apple dropping. Not space curving, time curving.
Gravity is your own gentle tendency to drift into your own future's slow lane.
Which still gives me vertigo because it means my head is very slightly older than my feet. All day, every day.
All day, every day, and we don't even leave the room to prove it. The satellites whispering to the map in your pocket would walk you off by the width of a city inside a day if they ignored it. Time genuinely runs faster up where gravity is weaker.
I've made a grim peace with it. So, the falling was the seed. Lay out the whole empire for me. I want to see the map before you start pointing at the holes in it.
Then here's the empire, and it's a staggering one. From that one idea, Matter tells space-time how to bend, and the bending tells matter how to move. The first thing that fell out was light itself obeying. A beam grazing the sun swings off its straight line because even light has to follow the sag.
And a total eclipse let people watch stars near the sun's edge shift, exactly as promised.
Bent by twice what anyone using the old picture would ever have guessed. That factor of 2 was the whole game.
That was the night the theory stopped being a beautiful story and became true.
The night it became true. And it didn't stop there. Push the same equation harder, squeeze enough mass into a small enough space, and it hands you a monster.
The black hole, a line out in empty space, and once you cross it, every road leads inward.
No exits. Not exits that are hard. Exits that have stopped existing. And crossing that line feels like nothing at all. No wall, no bump.
You drummed that into me. You sail across the point of no return, and the universe doesn't so much as clear its throat.
Because locally, in your own small patch, falling always feels like nothing. The very first night cashed in at the worst possible moment. And then the same theory told us the fabric can wave.
Slam 2 black holes together, and the crash sends a shudder out through the shape of space.
A stretch and squeeze, racing away at the speed of light. A billion years later, it washes over the Earth, and 2 of the most delicate instruments our species has ever built feel every human on the planet stretch by less than the width of a speck inside an atom.
And we heard it. We turned the shape of space bending into a sound. I still get shivers.
And then the biggest one of all. Take the same equation, and instead of 1 star, hand it everything. Every galaxy at once. The whole contents of creation.
And it won't sit still.
It refuses. The universe in that equation has to be growing or dying, never resting. And when we looked, the distant galaxies were sailing apart, their light stretched redder the farther off they sat, not flying through space, but carried on space as space itself swelled.
Rewind that, and everything was closer, hotter, denser. A beginning, not an explosion somewhere in the room itself, everywhere at once, growing from almost nothing.
One thought. A man letting go of a railing. And it walked all the way from that to the birth of the universe.
When you line it up like that, it's almost obscene how much one idea got right.
It's the crown jewel of the whole enterprise. And I want it fully on the table before the next thing, because the next thing only lands if you're still holding how magnificent this is. Everything I just listed, the falling, the bent light, the black holes, the waves, the swelling cosmos, every one of them is the same equation. The same handful of ideas applied over and over and right every time.
Right, every time. I can hear the hinge in your voice. Here comes the and.
Here comes the and. That same equation, the one that has never lied to us, if you follow it honestly into 2 particular places, it stops handing you numbers and starts handing you infinity.
All right, now we're at the confession. 2 places. Last week you showed me the first. We wind the universe far enough and it goes to infinite density, that unbearable first instant. What's the second?
The second you already know. You've been staring straight at it for weeks and never quite turned around. It's the center of a black hole.
Of course it is. The whole time we were falling in, all those weeks ago, you kept me so busy with the horizon that I never once made myself ask what's waiting at the bottom.
Nobody wants to ask what's at the bottom. And here's the marvel, the thing I want you to actually feel. The beginning of the entire universe and the heart of a single collapsed star. 2 places that could not sound more different. The biggest thing there is, and a speck at the core of one dead sun.
And the same equation does the same thing in both.
It follows the collapse down and down and down. And at the very bottom, The curvature it's reporting doesn't get large. It gets infinite. Density infinite. Everything the theory measures running off the end of the page at once.
Wait, that's genuinely lovely before it's terrifying. The same failure in the two most opposite places in existence. That can't be a coincidence.
It is very much not a coincidence, and hold that thrill. It's the thread that leads out of the room at the end. But first, I have to teach you to read that word, infinity. Because when I say the equation hands back infinity, you're picturing some real, unimaginably enormous quantity out there at the center. A number so big it breaks your jaw.
That's exactly what I'm picturing. Isn't that what it means?
Not even slightly. In this trade, infinity is never a measurement of the world. It's a symptom. It's the sound the mathematics makes when you've driven it somewhere it doesn't belong.
So not very, very big, something else entirely.
Nature never hands anybody an infinite anything. You can't have infinite curvature. You can't fit infinite density into a real place because infinite isn't a value. It's the absence of a value dressed up in a number's clothing. So when the equation writes that word, it isn't describing the center of the black hole. It's raising a flag.
Saying what, exactly?
Saying, as plainly as an equation can say anything. Past here, I no longer know what I'm talking about.
So the infinity isn't a thing at the center. The infinity is the theory fainting.
The theory fainting. I'm stealing that. That is exactly it. And this is why the word physicists use for those two places is so quietly misleading, and I need to disarm it right now. They're called singularities.
And that sounds like a place, a destination.
Doesn't it? A tiny, dreadful dot at the center of the whole that you could, in principle, fly down and visit and photograph.
That's the picture in my head exactly. A dense little full stop at the bottom of everything.
Kill that picture. Gently, but kill it. A singularity is not a place. It's the point where the theory's own description of the place falls apart. It's not a dot in space you could reach. It's the edge of what general relativity can say, and the theory itself is pointing at it.
Give me a handhold, because not a place is slippery when you've spent a season calling it the center.
Then think back to the black hole. Remember the strangest thing we learned inside it, that once you cross the horizon, the center isn't a where at all. It stops being a place ahead of you in space and becomes a when. A moment in your future you can't steer away from, the way you can't steer away from next Tuesday.
I remember. It rearranged my whole head. The center isn't down there, it's later.
So it was never a spot on a map to begin with. And now the theory goes one worse. It says, at that unavoidable moment, my numbers run to infinity, which means I have no honest description of that moment at all.
Not, here is a terrible place. Rather,
here is where I, general relativity, run out. Something real happens here. A star truly did collapse. The universe truly did begin. But it is not me who can tell you what.
Now, hold on, let me push. Because this smells like the sort of thing a clever theory says to get out of a hard exam. Couldn't the infinity just be sloppiness? We drew the black hole too neatly. Perfect sphere, everything falling dead straight to the middle. Of course it all piles up in one point, and the arithmetic screams.
Go on, make the case. It's a good one.
Wheel stars are lumpy. Wheel collapse is a mess. Surely in a realistic fall, the stuff misses the exact center, swirls past, and there's no infinity, just a very dense, very finite mess. The infinity's an artifact of tidy drawing.
The best objection there is, and precisely the one everyone reached for first. For decades, honestly. Make it messy and the infinity goes away. And then it was proven, a good while after the man who wrote the equation was gone, that it does not go away.
You don't need the perfect sphere.
You don't need anything to aim at the center. Once a collapse passes a certain point of no return, the equation forces the infinity to appear, no matter how lumpy, how lopsided, how realistically ugly you make the fall. It isn't a flaw in the picture, it's baked into the theory itself.
So the theory looks at the center of every black hole and the birth of the whole universe and says, in its own hand, I break here. And it means it. There's no better draftsman coming to fix the drawing.
There's no better draftsman coming. The theory isn't being sloppy, it's being honest, which is a far more unsettling thing for a theory to be. It has surveyed the entire universe correctly, everywhere we can check, and then drawn, with total precision, the two spots where it must hand over to something it is not.
That's the confession I couldn't sleep on.
In two places, the smallest, densest places there are, the finest theory of gravity ever written raises its hand and admits it has reached the end of itself.
All right, that's the wound, but I feel like you're about to tell me it's deeper than it looks. The equation gives infinity at the center. That's a headache. It doesn't yet feel like a crisis.
Because the infinity is only the symptom. Now I take you to the disease. And to do that, I have to bring the other giant into the room. The one we kept politely outside the door all season, because our season was gravity.
The small stuff, the quantum world, the realm where everything goes fuzzy and probabilistic.
The small stuff. And here's the thing I need you holding in both hands, because the whole crisis lives inside it. We have, right now, two theories of staggering beauty. Two of the greatest things our species has ever built.
Ours, general relativity, gravity, the very large.
And quantum theory, the very small. Every bit as precise, every bit as unbeaten in its own kingdom. And here's the catastrophe folded up inside that good fortune. The two of them describe utterly different kinds of world.
Different how? They're both physics. They both use mathematics. Surely at bottom they describe the same universe.
You'd think, and they don't. Let me lay them side by side. General relativity, your theory, our theory, says the world at bottom is smooth. Space-time is a continuous fabric. No gaps, no grain, every point flowing into the next without a seam.
That's the whole feel of everything you taught me. The fabric, the straightest path, everything gliding along curves.
And it's certain. Hand the equation the matter now, and it tells you the shape of everything forever after. No dice, no maybes, no odds. A clockwork of pure geometry, perfectly smooth, perfectly determined.
Set, continuous, knowable, and the other theory?
The world the other theory describes, down at the smallest scale, is not smooth. It's grainy, jittery, restless. Nothing sits still. Nothing is ever exactly anywhere.
Everything a shimmer of maybes.
And the best it will ever give you is the odds. Never a certainty, only a probability. Even perfectly empty space isn't calm down there. It froths and flickers, borrowing and repaying energy, never once holding still.
So, where general relativity says smooth and certain, quantum theory says grainy and chancy.
And those aren't two moods you can average. Smooth is not almost grainy. Certain is not nearly probabilistic. They're flatly contradictory accounts of what the world is made of underneath.
So one says the floor of reality is a sheet of glass, perfectly smooth, and if I know it now, I know it forever. And the other says the floor of reality is a swarm of gnats, grainy, and I can only ever tell you the chance of where the swarm is.
A sheet of glass against a swarm of gnats. That's it exactly, and it's not a small disagreement you can split down the middle. Now you're allowed the obvious question. Ask it.
The obvious question is, so what? If they contradict each other this badly, how has nobody noticed? How does the whole of physics not fall over every morning? I use a phone that runs on the quantum world and corrects for your gravity every second, and nothing catches fire.
Because, and this is the mercy that let us get away with it for 100 years, the two theories almost never have to be in the same room. They rule different kingdoms and they keep to their borders.
Gravity for the enormous, quantum for the tiny.
General relativity rules the enormous. Stars, galaxies, the swelling cosmos. Quantum theory rules the tiny. Atoms, particles, the froth. And gravity, it turns out, is so absurdly feeble between two small things that down at the quantum scale you can simply ignore it and lose nothing at all.
How feeble are we talking?
Between two single particles, gravity is weaker than the other forces by an amount there aren't good enough words for. So the small stuff gets to forget gravity entirely, and the huge stuff gets to forget the froth, and each theory sits in its own kingdom, being perfectly, unbrokenly right, and they never have to speak.
A cold peace. Two great powers who've agreed never to visit each other.
A cold peace, and it holds beautifully, almost everywhere. But there are exactly two places in all of creation where the border breaks down. Where something is enormously heavy, so gravity is strong and you can't ignore general relativity.
And at the same time, crushed impossibly small.
Down into the quantum realm, so you can't ignore the froth either. Two places where a thing is strong and small at once. Where you're forced, with no way out, to speak both languages in the same breath.
And I already know the two places. You've said them 3 times tonight. The center of a black hole, and the first instant of the universe.
The center of a black hole. And the first instant. The two spots where general relativity fainted and wrote infinity. Those are exactly the two spots where, for once, the very large and the very small are the same thing.
All the mass of a dead star or the whole cosmos packed into a region smaller than a single particle.
Strong gravity and tiny scale in the one place at the one time. And there, only there, the cold peace ends. The two theories are shoved face to face and made to agree. And they can't.
Oh, so the infinity isn't the disease at all. The infinity is a scar. It's the mark left on general relativity's face at the exact spot where it collided head-on with the quantum world, and neither one could win with the tools we've got.
That's the whole thing. You just said the whole thing. The singularity isn't a monster hiding at the center of the black hole. It's the scar where our two greatest theories are forced together and tear each other apart.
General relativity walks down into that center, shouting one thing.
Smooth, certain. Give me the geometry. And the quantum world is already there, shouting back. There is no single geometry here. It's all a jitter of maybes. And they can't both be obeyed. And general relativity's way of losing that fight is to write down infinity and faint.
The infinity was never the answer. It was the theory telling us it walked into a fight it couldn't finish.
That's why it's a crisis and not a footnote. It's not that one equation has an awkward spot. It's that the two halves of all of physics, the two things we're proudest of, flatly disagree, and they've picked the two most important places in the universe to have the argument.
The birthplace of everything, and the fate of everything that falls into a black hole.
Not some obscure corner nobody cares about. The two hinges the whole cosmos turns on. That's where the theories meet, and that's where they break. And I want to be scrupulous, the way I promised. Nature is not confused at those places. A star really did finish collapsing. The universe really did begin.
So something perfectly definite happens there. It's us who can't write it.
It's a hole in what we know, not a hole in the world.
Let me make sure I've actually got that, because it's the slippery part. You're not saying reality goes infinite and mad at the center of a black hole. You're saying reality does something perfectly ordinary to itself down there. And our theories go mad trying to describe it.
The madness is in the map, not the territory.
Say that at parties and people will think you've read something.
The territory is fine. It's doing whatever it does. It's the two maps, both so reliable everywhere else, that both catch fire the instant you ask them to describe the same square inch. And when your two best maps of the world burn up in precisely the same place, that's not a small thing.
It's physics telling you there's a deeper map neither one of them is.
A truer thing underneath both, that would look from up here like both at once. Smooth where it needs to be smooth, grainy where it needs to be grainy, and finite right where they both run to infinity.
Does it have a name, this deeper thing? Even if nobody's found it?
It has a name, and the name is a to-do list rather than an achievement. Quantum gravity, a theory in which space-time itself, the fabric, the very thing we've treated as a smooth sheet all season, is quantum down at the bottom. Grainy, jittery, uncertain.
So that falling to the center of a black hole.
Instead of the fabric bending infinitely, the graininess catches you. There's a smallest possible size, a flaw, and nothing can be squeezed past it, and the infinity simply has nowhere to form. That's the dream, a theory where the two places that scream don't scream, where the confession gets answered.
And somebody's built this, surely. We're a civilization with the phone and the satellites and the two black holes heard across 1 billion years. Please tell me somebody's got the deeper theory in a drawer.
Nobody has it in a drawer. Let me be as plain as I've ever been, because this is exactly where lazy talk does harm. There is no confirmed, finished, agreed theory of quantum gravity. None. Not we're nearly there. Not one clever experiment away. It is, at this very hour, genuinely, squarely open.
The biggest unanswered question in the whole field.
Arguably the single biggest one in all of fundamental physics. A great many brilliant people have thrown their whole lives at it. Some of what they've built is breathtaking, and not one piece of it has yet crossed the line from beautiful to true.
But there are attempts. You said some of what they've built. Even if none of it's finished, what does an attempt to marry gravity and the quantum world even look like? Give me the shapes of them.
There are attempts, and I'll give you the shapes, even-handed, because the fastest way to lie to you tonight would be to name my favorite and let my voice go warm on it. So hear me. These are ambitions, not answers. Each one a serious, gorgeous guess at the deeper map. Not one has been caught in the act of being right.
Understood. No favorites, just the shapes. Go.
The first shape says everything. Every particle and the fabric of space-time, and even the thing that carries gravity, is at bottom made of unimaginably tiny strings. Little vibrating threads. The note a thread plays is what we experience as this particle or that force.
And the hope is
That because a string isn't a hard point, but a smeared-out, quivering thing, it never lets you build the infinitely sharp center that makes the equation faint. The graininess is built in from the start. Call that one string theory. Astonishingly rich, decades deep, and still on the far side of the line from proven.
a universe of tiny, plucked strings, and gravity is just one of the notes. That's beautiful whether it's true or not. Next shape?
The next comes at it from the opposite end. Instead of building space-time out of strings living in space, it asks, what if space itself is the thing that's grainy? What if the smooth fabric we've trusted all season is, up close, woven, knitted out of smallest possible chunks?
So, area and volume don't come in any amount you like.
They come in indivisible grains, like the finest possible chainmail. And if space is knitted from smallest pieces, you can't squeeze anything down to a point, because there is no point. There's a smallest stitch, and the infinity has nowhere to live. Call that one loop quantum gravity. Space not as a sheet, but as a weave.
So one crowd says the stuff in space is grainy, and the other says space itself is grainy. They can't both be the deepest thing, can they?
They cannot both be the whole truth, no. And that's rather the point of an open question. And there's a third shape, the strangest of the lot, so brace up. It's the ambition that everything happening inside a chunk of space, all the gravity, all the geometry, the whole three-dimensional show, might be completely written down on the flat boundary around it.
Encoder on the surface.
With no gravity in the writing at all. So the gravity and the curved space we've spent a season on would be a kind of projection, a shadow, a shimmer thrown by something simpler and flatter that has no gravity in it whatsoever. Call that one holography. The whisper that a universe with gravity might be a hologram of one without.
That the whole curved cosmos might be a picture of something with no curve in it at all. That one actually gives me the chills. So, 3 shapes: strings, weaves, holograms. And you're telling me the honest thing is we don't know which, if any.
If any. That's the word I won't let you drop. Each of the 3 has passed real tests. Tests of its own internal honesty. Places where it could have contradicted itself and didn't. Each is a genuine, serious cathedral of an idea.
But none of them checked against the actual world.
Not at the place it matters. Because the place it matters, the graininess of space-time, is so unspeakably tiny and would need so unspeakably violent an experiment to reach that we've never once been able to poke it directly. They remain the most magnificent maps ever drawn of a country nobody has visited.
And you won't crown one.
I will not stand here on the last night and crown one and call it the answer. That would be the one genuine betrayal available to me tonight.
You've dodged worse. Why is that the betrayal? Why not just tell me which you'd bet on and let me carry it up the stairs?
Because you didn't come down these stairs for a warm blanket. You came for the truth, even the uncomfortable ones, especially the uncomfortable ones. And a beautiful idea and a true idea are 2 different countries. The thing that makes this science and not storytelling is the refusal to mistake the one for the other before nature has spoken.
Handing me your favourite dressed up as the answer.
Would feel for one cozy minute like progress, and it would quietly undo the single most important thing I ever taught you.
Which is?
To sit in the not knowing without flinching. To hold a question open, honestly, for exactly as long as the evidence leaves it open, and not 1 minute less. That patience isn't a weakness in us, it's the engine. Everything in that whole glittering empire we listed at the start was bought by someone willing to sit a long time with a question and refuse to cheat.
All right, let me line the whole confession up in one breath, and you tell me if I've got it, because it sounds bleak said straight out. The greatest theory we've ever built predicts, in its own hand, 2 places where it breaks. Those 2 places are where it slams into the other greatest theory we've built. The 2 of them contradict each other at the root, smooth against grainy, certain against chancy. Nobody has the deeper theory that would settle it, and the ideas we do have we can't even test. George, is general relativity broken?
No. And this, right here, is the turn I've been holding my breath for all night. So let me make it properly and make it land. Not one single thing we named tonight means the theory is wrong. You have to hear the difference because everything hangs on it.
Everywhere it actually opens its mouth.
Every orbit, every bent ray of starlight, every black hole, every ripple across the sky, the whole history of the swelling cosmos, it is still right. Unbrokenly, gloriously right, to a precision almost nothing else in science can touch. We did not find one place tonight where the theory speaks and lies. Not one.
So the cracks aren't the theory getting things wrong under my nose. They're not errors.
The cracks aren't errors. The cracks are the edge. And there's a whole world between a theory that is wrong and a theory that ends. A wrong theory marches you confidently off a cliff it swore was a road. That's the kind you throw in the fire.
And a theory that ends?
A theory that ends just stops. It carries you, perfectly and reliably, all the way to the border of what it can describe, and everything it drew up to that border is still exactly, dependably true. General relativity is not a wrong theory. It's a breathtakingly accurate one that reaches an edge. And all night, under all the confessing, the only thing I've actually done is walk you out to that edge and let you look over it.
Incomplete, not incorrect.
Two completely different words. And you can feel the whole gulf between them now, can't you? In a way the person who came down these stairs 12 weeks ago couldn't have.
Incorrect would be a catastrophe. Tear it down, start again.
Incomplete is an invitation. And here's the thing I could never have made you feel on the first night, on the night of the man falling. The confession isn't the theory being weak. It's the theory being great enough to see its own horizon.
A lesser theory wouldn't know where its edge was.
It would march you cheerfully into the black hole center, insisting everything was fine, and hand you nonsense with a straight face. General relativity is precise enough to walk you to within a single point, the exact center, the exact first instant, and stop, and say, here, right here. This is where I end and something deeper begins. I can't tell you what it is, but I can tell you, to the inch, where to look for it.
So the confession is a map. That's what you've been circling all night. It doesn't just say, I fail. It says, I fail here, and nowhere else. It hands you the coordinates.
It hands you the coordinates. The suicide note you opened the night with. I'll take it back from you now and read it the right way round. It was never a suicide note. It's a treasure map. 2 spots circled on it, in the theory's own hand, marked, dig here.
And that's the most useful thing a great theory can do at the end of its reach.
Not pretend the reach goes on forever, but turn around and point, with total precision, at exactly where the next 100 years of physics is waiting to be found.
And that's a genuinely different feeling from broken. It's almost the opposite feeling. I walked down tonight braced for a funeral, and you've turned it into a doorway.
The opposite feeling exactly. This, the place we're standing right now, is the most exciting spot a science can possibly be. A theory good enough to trust with the whole cosmos, its own honest edges lit up bright as noon, telling us with real precision where the next thing is hiding.
So I ought to trust it more for admitting it, not less.
More, and by a country mile. Be wary, always, of the theory that swears it explains everything. That's the one quietly hiding something under the table. General relativity earns your trust precisely by being honest about where it stops. Like the finest guide in the mountains, who at the last of the mapped trail doesn't bluff you onward. They stop and point and say plainly, past this line, I don't know the ground.
And that honesty is the whole reason you'd follow them anywhere they do know it.
The theory that knows the shape of its own ignorance is the one that has actually understood something. Any fool can wave a hand and say, there's lots we don't know. That costs nothing. To say precisely where the knowing stops, down to a single point in space and a single instant in time, that's one of the highest things a science has ever done.
And it was only possible because the theory is so staggeringly good.
You have to understand the universe almost completely to locate that exactly, the one place you don't.
I keep coming back to the 2 spots, though, the birth of everything and the heart of a black hole. It's such a strange pair to have circled, the absolute beginning and, the absolute end of anything unlucky enough to fall in, both marked dig here.
And that's not an accident either. It's the loveliest thread to pull on your way out the door. The same failure in the 2 most opposite places there are. You spotted it yourself hours ago and got a thrill off it before you knew why.
Tell me why.
It's telling you that whatever the deeper theory is, it's one thing. One theory that governs both the first instant and the final center, the biggest and the smallest, the beginning and the fall, because they turned out to be, at the deepest level, the same question, wearing two masks.
So find the physics of the black hole's heart.
And you very likely found the physics of the birth of the universe in the same stroke. The theory pointed at two doors. There's a fair chance they open into the same room.
One room behind both doors that we haven't walked into yet, and nobody's got the key.
Nobody's got the key. And I'm going to leave it exactly there, unlocked but unopened, because that's the truest place the evidence lets me set it down. I could tie a ribbon on it and send you up the stairs happy and lied to. I won't do that to you, not on the last night. The door is real. The door is open. And what's behind it is the adventure still being written.
We've come a long way from a man stepping off a diving board, haven't we? That was the whole of the first night. One person letting go of a railing, feeling gravity vanish for a single heartbeat.
And it turned out that heartbeat was the loose thread the entire universe hangs from.
Say the promise back to me, the one from the very first night. I want to hear whether it kept it.
The promise was this, the falling feeling you've had your whole life, that you never once thought to question. It isn't a hand pulling you down. It's the shape of space-time, and it's you following the straightest path you can through it. And once you truly see that, the universe stops being a stage that things move across, and becomes a thing that moves.
And 12 weeks on, I can feel that it kept it. The stage became the story. On the way here, the same idea told us light must bend, and clocks must run slow down where gravity is strong, and black holes must be real, and space itself can ring like a bell, and the whole cosmos is swelling from a hot, bright beginning. And then, at the very end, with the exact same hand, it drew the edge of its own map.
And said, "Past here, someone braver than me."
I don't think I'll ever get over that a theory can be great enough to point past itself.
That's the thing to carry up the stairs. Not the answer. There wasn't one to give you, and I'd have been lying if I'd handed you one. The posture. A theory magnificent enough to conquer the whole visible universe, and honest enough to circle, in its own hand, the two places it cannot go.
Right, and not yet finished.
Both of those held at once, without ever letting go of either. That's exactly what it feels like to stand at a real frontier. Not despair and not smugness, just wonder. Wonder and a lit door.
And there's no next week, is there? This is the one you've been quietly saying goodbye to all night. I heard it in your voice from the first answer.
There's no next week. 12 nights was always the shape of this. But don't go mourning it. A season only ends sadly if it went nowhere, and ours travelled from a single falling heartbeat all the way to the honest edge of what anyone alive knows.
That isn't a thing to grieve.
That's a thing to finish properly. And so I'm not going to hand this last one back to another episode. I'm going to hand it to you.
To me?
To the person listening. Because here's the plain fact of where we're standing. The deeper theory, the one behind both doors, the one that would answer the confession, it hasn't been written. Not by me, not by anyone.
Which means the hand that writes it
hasn't necessarily even picked up the pencil yet. It might belong to someone who has spent this whole season riding a bus, doing the dishes, lying on the floor, listening to two voices argue about a man falling off a diving board.
The most important question in physics, genuinely open.
Genuinely, honestly open. And an open question doesn't belong to the people who came before. It belongs to whoever refuses to look away from it.
So that's the whole invitation. The door's open, and it's open for me. For whoever's still here at the end.
That's the whole invitation, and it's the truest thing I've got. General relativity mapped the universe, and then, at the very last, turned around and drew the edge of its own map, and marked in its own hand exactly where the map runs out. Everything past that edge is unwritten,
The single best question our species has ever been handed.
sitting there, unanswered, with the coordinates already circled for you. I can't tell you what's out past the edge. Nobody can. That's not the sad part of the story. That's the part that's still yours.
Then I'll take it. I came down these stairs on the very first night, sure of exactly one thing, that gravity was a force, a hand, something reaching up out of the ground to hold me in my chair. And I'm walking up them for the last time, knowing it was never a hand at all. It was the shape of things, the bend in the fabric, the straightest path through a universe that curves. And I'm walking up knowing something better than an answer, which is precisely where the answer isn't yet. 2 doors circled on a map, waiting on someone brave enough to open them. You didn't tie a bow on it, and I'm glad you didn't. Some things you're meant to carry up the stairs still open in your hands. Thank you, George, for the falling, and the light, and the black holes, and the ringing sky, and the whole swelling cosmos, and most of all for the edge, and the honesty to point at it. The door's open. I think I'll leave it that way. Good night, and to whoever's still listening at the end of all of it, it's your turn now.